The most
Okay.
painful part of the show begins.
The whole show is painful. What are you talking about? By the way, Noah, where was the pink shirt you promised?
Oh man, I mean, it's in some dresser over there in the side. There's no chance it's ever going to see the light of day.
No?
I promise you, no.
You gotta
It's
liven it
a
up.
bright
Find your
pink
inner Ken.
flamingo. You see, I'm not a Barbie man personally. I prefer my bluish purplish shirt. We can debate the color some other time, but no, I mean, I think you'd look a lot better in it, Andrew.
I have like a fuchsia-y. Well, actually, I don't really know what fuchsia is. It's like a purpley pink shirt that I was wearing
Great
accidentally.
color.
Pardon me?
It's a great color.
You'll know it is. I like the shirt, but the problem is I wore it in a documentary that I was interviewed for, and then I accidentally wore it at the screening of the documentary. So everyone there thought I just had one shirt, which was I mean, as far as the fashion faux pas I could make, not the most embarrassing, but
Should wear it when you go to Winnipeg. They've never seen anything other than gray over there.
oh, that's just cruel. All right, let's get this started. Hello and welcome to Off the Record. This is where we kick back, analyze the week that was. We delve into the things that True North has covered, the things we didn't get to, the things that we just feel like covering and talking about. And we do it in a much more laid back, casual way. It is oftentimes referred to as the Friday train wreck. Actually, no, it's never been referred to that until now. So if you want to call it the Friday train wreck, you can. But it will be less of one with my two co-hosts for today. I'm Andrew Lawton, in case you missed the memo. But we have Rachel Emmanuel, our Alberta correspondent and also host of Alberta Roundup, and has some other stuff cooking that we'll have some details about for you pretty soon. And Noah Jarvis, you hear from time to time on the Daily Brief and also see his work over at tnc.news. Rachel, Noah, good to have you back. Thanks for coming.
Glad to be back. Glad that you were once again in the hosting chair as well.
It's always a blast to be on OTR.
Apparently, the whole thing fell apart when I wasn't hosting a couple of weeks back, and like Harrison, Faulkner, and William were basically just saying, "I'm never doing this again without Andrew hosting." So now I've been like, it was supposed to be this like rotating thing, and now everyone's too scared to do it. So what's the problem? It's easy. You just have a chat.
It's funny that every week it's like to our audience, it's like, oh man, the show, it's such a train wreck. No one wants to host it anymore. I feel like we probably need to do a little bit of a better job pitching it to people so that they actually, come back time and time again to listen to it.
There was so I actually had a book launch. Oh, I had a little book tour, and there was an event in Toronto, and Noah came out, and there was a guy there that came up to me who loved Off the Record, and there was a moment that he loved of yours, Noah. And did you talk to him? Did he tell you this in person?
Yeah, we were talking. It's like, oh, I really loved your when you called Rachel Emmanuel Miss Emmanuel. I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad at least someone got some humor.
Yeah, because Noah, like everyone's been like relentlessly making fun of Noah since that, but this guy is like, yeah, that's the highlight of the show. I loved it. I loved when Noah just looked at Rachel as though she was some like weird, scary school marm.
Well,
in
it's
that situation,
also not
like
accurate. You're not using the language accurately. I'm not a miss. I'm a Mrs. So you have to get it right, Noah. It's important.
Was it Miss or Ms. that you got?
I'm pretty sure it's Mrs. before you get married. No, I don't know.
No, it's not. No, it's Miss. It used to be Miss before you get married, and then Mrs. when you're married. But now it's
some school
everything
teacher
is
definitely
Ms.
messed me up. Yeah, some school
Kids
teacher
these
messed me up.
days.
I've got it confused. Sorry.
Are you
Well, for the
actually
five
legally
people in
old
the
enough-
audience remaining after that stellar introduction, what were
I
you
just
going to
wonder
say,
if
Rachel?
I just wonder if Noah's like legally old enough to work here. Should we double check that?
I
Noah,
think
take it up with HR if you have a human rights complaint about that baseless ageism you've just experienced. But all right, let's get into this one story here. So Jennifer O'Connell is a Liberal member of Parliament, and I'm just going to warn people, we are going to do an AI-generated song for this, but I didn't make it. But we'll get to that in a bit. Rachel, what happened this week?
So the National Security and Intelligence Committee released a report saying that there was many MPs that have been accused of collaborating with foreign governments. Now, when this report was released, predictably, the Liberal government redacted the names of the MPs who've been accused of this. So naturally, the Conservatives have been putting pressure on the government to try to get those names, as I think we would all like to see. During a committee meeting this week, the conservative MPs were questioning, trying to get these names released, and Liberal MP Jennifer O'Connell kind of kept heckling during committee, which is a big no-no in committee. You're supposed to let the member who has the chair do the speaking. You're not supposed to be heckling. And Jennifer O'Connell can just be heard in the background going, boo-hoo. Boo hoo, get over it. No big deal that there's been foreign interference in Canada. Who cares? And this ended up going really, really badly for her. There were some tweets about it going on around online. It ended up blowing up with people kind of from all aisles really condemning this action and saying how inappropriate this was. I don't think she expected this condemnation. I'm sure she's regretting her actions now. Just going to throw this out there. When I first started covering Parliament Hill just out of university, I immediately noticed something was off with Jennifer O'Connell. I've never really liked her. She's one of those MPs who's just beyond partisan. Like, she can never really get anything done in committee because she's just so focused on her partisan agenda. And I feel like she doesn't work collaboratively with other members. That was something I noticed in the beginning. And just kind of having seen some of her actions like this one play out, I feel very validated in having identified that about her early on. But yeah, so then I guess it was Stephen Taylor who online made this AI generated song about the whole incident. I think we have a clip of that we can play. It's definitely nowhere near as good as the songs that Andrew makes. If you want to hear some really good AI generated songs, you'll have to head on over to the Alberta Roundup after this.
Yeah, take that, Stephen Taylor. Your AI songs suck.
It sucks. Yeah. No, let's play that song now, though.
In Ottawa, in Parliament, they make a lot of noise. MPs and their secrets, playing with foreign toys.
She's not Albertan.
Yeah,
we need to clarify this.
Yeah, I don't know why she's doing like a country banjo.
Oh my dear Peter, isn't that just sad? It's all just treason, yeah, isn't it a joke? Silly games and power plays these MPs provoke, but the real betrayal, it's crystal clear. You're not with Justin, you hear? Boo, get over it, it's just a silly game. Boo, get over it, we know who's to blame. Boo, get over it, treason's just a word. If
Better than Taylor Swift?
Yeah, step aside, Taylor Swift in the Eras Tour. Jennifer O'Connell coming to stadiums near you with her hit single "Boo Hoo, Get Over It," which is actually, come to think of it, it's actually a good name for a song. "Boo Hoo, Get Over It." It's not, for a member of His Majesty's Parliament particularly becoming, but oh boy.
The song title itself is funny. The lyrics could use a little bit tweaking. Actually, when I saw this online, and did get a lot of traction, and I'm glad that we're all, calling this out and also making jokes about it. I'm glad the song was made to draw further attention to the issue. But it did remind me of probably my favorite line from Andrew Lawton's recent book, Pierre Poilievre, A Political Life, was when he was telling the story about Pierre Poilievre eating that apple while doing an interview that went really viral online. And then all the parliamentarians posed for a photo with an apple the following day. And he basically said, it just shows politicians' ability to make something fun and cool and turn it into something that is lame. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I did. A good memory. I wrote that, and I think I might have even argued with my publisher about that because he thought it was too opinionated. I'm like, no, if we can't call the photo of like 100 people holding an apple lame, I don't know what we can. But Noah, what's your take on the whole boo-hoo thing from Jennifer O'Connell?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting that she's supposed to swear an oath before she sits in Parliament, and she's supposed to defend not only our Constitution but also our national security. Yet she goes to committee and basically shows that she's scornful of MPs who want to get to the truth of who may be collaborating with foreign governments. I mean, when you go to the ballot box in 2025, are you going to be 100% confident that the person you're voting for hasn't collaborated with, say, the Chinese government or the Iranian government? It's a really serious stuff, and we can make AI generated songs about this because it helps to lighten the mood about something very dark and sinister. But at the end of the day, it is really crappy that Jennifer O'Connell is doing this as an elected MP. I think Canadians deserve more accountability, not from O'Connell, but from all the MPs who are collaborating with, say, India or China.
So I don't actually think she is one of the subjects of foreign interference, if only because that would be like the worst way to spend money if you're China. Like you're getting Jennifer O'Connell. That's just like, what was that?
I think China will just see her as like a useless, you know. She's like,
Yeah,
oh, you know,
they're like, no, we don't.
okay,
You're doing enough interfering on your own. You don't
Even
need our
China
help.
doesn't claim her. Oof.
So I will say my one Jennifer O'Connell story. This was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was at the airport and I was waiting for my flight, and she sat right beside me, not knowing who I was. Just it was one of those long tables, and it was packed. She sat beside me, and I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just enjoying my coffee. And she don't give me that look, Rachel. I was not trying to snoop. In fact, I think I like angled away when I saw it was Jennifer O'Connell because I'm like, I just don't want to deal with this. But then I saw it, just happened to see, because she had it on her phone and it was held out in front of her. She was posting something on Instagram. It took her 15 minutes to write the caption for the thing she was posting on Instagram. And like, I saw it, like, I have never seen someone working so hard to write 2 sentences. And at the end of it, it made me like really fascinated because I couldn't see what she was writing. I just saw that she was working on. And then, like, when I was getting on my flight, I was like, oh, I wonder if she finally figured out the Instagram thing. So I went on her Instagram and saw the post, and it was like, great times seeing so-and-so in the riding on the weekend. And that was like, I was like, it took you 15 minutes for that. So the fact that she said, boo-hoo, get over it in like 5 seconds, I actually think is a step in the right direction. She's becoming a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
think
maybe
when
if
you
she had
see her,
stopped to take the time to double check and, really think about,
Yeah.
do I want to say this? Could have ended a little bit better for her. Fortunately, for us, it's hilarious and we can make light of this issue now. I have to kind of wonder, though, about this report. They haven't released the names. Do we even know which parties these MPs were found in? Like, do you think there's any chance
No.
we're going to get any details on this? Let's say we were to see a conservative government in a year. Do you think there's a chance that they would release the names? Because I feel like this is a matter that is Canadians deserve to know. Like, we have the right to know what the heck is going on. Who are these MPs that have been working with foreign governments? It's a huge allegation.
Yeah, I know. I talked about it a bit with Sam Cooper, who runs the Bureau, on my show. I think it was yesterday. And Sam Cooper was basically of the mind that there's not really a mechanism to compel the government to release the names. So he was sort of indicating that things will have to be leaked, that someone who is involved with this report or someone in the intelligence community will have to basically just go to a reporter and be like, here, look at this envelope. And it would be illegal to do that. But ultimately, we're at the point when the government is being so non-transparent, that's really the only option. I think there are probably people from different parties implicated. I think there are probably people in the Conservatives. There are probably people in the Liberals. The issue is that the Liberals know. The Liberals know, I think, or have access to it and aren't sharing it. Whereas the Conservatives, they can't make any decisions. They can't punish anyone, kick anyone out of caucus, refer anyone to police unless the names are shared. So the fact that you have the Bloc, the NDP, and the Conservatives all saying to the government, yeah, name the names. We need that. If our caucus has been infiltrated, we want to know that. And these parties just don't have that available. It's insane. And to your point earlier, Noah, like, here we have, we're making light of it because it's off the record, but there's a very serious issue underlying this. And I think Jennifer Connell's boohoo, get over it. The reason that's such an attractive story in and of itself is because it reflects, I think, the liberal flippance and flippance, I think, the liberal flippance or just disregard for the seriousness of this.
Do you think that if the Conservatives were to form
I asked
government...
Noah the question. You're woman-splaining to Noah.
I gotta get in when I can. You guys dominate. Your loud voices are always
Fair
dominating.
enough. Well, we have to
mine.
make space for women's voices. So
Yeah.
Either one of you, just someone say something. It was flippancy, by the way. I got it wrong. It wasn't flippance. Anyway, carry on.
Oh, well, you're supposed to be our editor. It really undermines confidence.
I really
in that role,
am, but I get to tell you guys when you make mistakes. I'm not supposed to make them myself.
Noah and I both knew it was wrong, but we just didn't want to get penalized later, so we kept our mouths shut.
Yeah, I don't want to get demoted or fired or anything.
This show was a terrible idea. All right, Noah, just say words. We're train wrecking the train wreck out of this.
Yeah, foreign interference bad. But yeah, no, I think like the liberal flippance with this issue, it's really concerning. You see it, not just with this recently revealed NSICOP report, but also with just how they've dealt with, say, the Han Dong situation. Han Dong was an MP sitting in their caucus, and Trudeau knew that he was collaborating with the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Republic of China, and he did nothing about it. He had to wait until it was leaked to the media, and only then did he kick him out of caucus. So it's not like this is a new thing. Trudeau just doesn't care about national security concerns. He only cares about the carbon tax and building back better, or whatever the hell he does.
I
Rachel,
wonder
go ahead.
I wonder if, let's say we have a conservative government in a year's time, they finally get their hands on these names, if it's not leaked by a government whistleblower first, do you think that they would make the names public, or do you think they take a look at the list and say, "Ooh, this actually looks pretty bad for us too. Let's just let's keep this quiet, especially now that the news cycle has long passed."
Yeah, it's a really tough question because on one hand, when that will have happened, they will have just won election, and potentially some of these people will have just won election. So do you 5 days after you're sworn in, look at some guy Joe Blow who was just elected in Scarborough, whatever, and say, oh no, I didn't really, get out of there. You're implicated in this. And so look, if I were the Conservatives right now, I'd be going through their caucus and being like, listen, you've got one chance to own up. Do you have any reason to believe that you are on this list? And if so, what have you done? But again, it's ridiculous. And I think the point that Sam Cooper had made, which I think is an incredibly valuable one, is that we don't really have the legal mechanisms to deal with this right now. And even the RCMP, which is supposedly investigating this, I saw someone say, and I haven't verified it independently, but it was someone credible who said it, they've got an ad hoc department with 7 people looking into this. So they've just sort of found like 7 random people in the lunchroom and said, yeah, you guys, okay, we got a national security thing, come on over. And these people are not experts in this. They have not spent their careers in this. They're not even from an intelligence background necessarily. A couple of them may have some experience, but it's not even like the police are equipped to deal with this. It's just this situation that people are only talking about now that's been happening for decades. I mean, going back to the 1940s, we've had foreign interference from the Soviets in Canada, but no one has really in this country tried to shore up our defenses against it.
Oh, that's deeply troubling. Maybe the government needs to spend a little bit investing in CRA agents who can track down you for not, claiming that $40 that you earned
Yeah.
last year, and maybe invest a
The
little bit
real
more
menaces to
defense.
society.
Yeah. I kind of suspect that the Conservatives wouldn't release the names a year later unless it became like a hot issue again with the media asking about it, which I don't think we would see in a year's time, just because the news cycle would have passed. And if it looks kind of bad, unless they've been able to get ahead of it and been like, this is the names, this is how we've dealt with this issue, and they're able to get ahead of the news story in that way. But if they're on the defensive, I don't think they would release it because, like I said, the news story's passed. It's like something similar with the increases to capital gains. Like, people are upset about that now. Are they still going to be upset about it when we have a conservative government, to the point that the conservative government will then roll back those taxes?
Yeah, and to go back to the book that you so kindly plugged, Pierre Poilievre, A Political Life, available now on Amazon and from Indigo. There's a part of that, and I've talked about it in some interviews in the last couple of weeks, that talks about what a Poilievre government would be like, what it would do. And everyone agrees that they need to hit the ground running if he wins and they're sworn in, October 2025, and do so much. But there's only so much you can do in 100 days. And I don't know, to your point, Rachel, if releasing this thing that everyone's talking about right now is going to be at the top of the priority list in a year and a half when that conceivable future government forms, or if it's the kind of thing that we just move on from. Like, remember, the Canadian government has kept classified a list of Nazi war criminals in Canada that was done 40 years ago, and still they won't release it. So transparency is not the default position of the Canadian government in general.
Well, I mean, Pierre Poilievre is doubtless listening to this right now. So hopefully he'll take your advice, Andrew, and he'll begin going through his caucus, and they'll be well prepared to release those names when and if he should form government.
Noah, last word on this.
Yeah, I think just to add on your points, I think there's not a lot of incentive for Polyev to do that when he gets into government, because he would have to sort of develop a legal infrastructure that is not there. You think during our experience with the Soviets, this sort of legal infrastructure would have been developed, but right now it's easier to prosecute whistleblowers than it is to prosecute those implicated in the reports that the whistleblowers are exposing to the public. So Polyev would have to pass laws to develop this legal infrastructure, taking away political capital and opportunity to say, do whatever his other priorities are. So I don't think this is something that's going to be addressed. Although if it is, that would be a welcome surprise.
All right. That is it for this topic. We shall move on now to, I was excited about this one, and then I realized that I don't know when, so I used to be the young person in many rooms, then I blinked and I became the old person in many contexts, and that includes at True North. So Rob Schneider, who's a comedian that I thought everyone knew. Rachel had only like, oh yeah, I think I've heard the name, or maybe I saw him in something that was playing on TV when I was flipping through the channels. And Noah just said, who the heck is Rob Schneider? So Rob Schneider used to be a comedy legend. He was on Saturday Night Live back in the day. He's been in like all the Adam Sandler movies. He was his famous line in a few of them was "You can do it," which he's done as all sorts of characters. He was in like all the Adam Sandler movies. He was also in, well, I guess they were Adam Sandler movies too, but Grown Ups 1 and 2, which were really funny. So Rob Schneider is a stand-up comedian. Now he has been, as the kids say, increasingly based in recent years on matters of politics. He's always tweeting. He once retweeted me because I had tweeted a clip of Danielle Smith, and Rob Schneider like really has a crush on Danielle Smith, it seems like. He's shared that a couple of times. He has, I think, approvingly shared True North stuff. He's approvingly shared Pierre Poilievre clips. He's very, very critical of Justin Trudeau. He is very political. He's very outspoken. He's not a big fan of COVID policy and all of that. Anyway, this is a lengthy wind up to he's invited to speak at a hospital fundraiser in Regina. Now, hospital fundraisers, I generally think, are more button down affairs. So bringing a comedian in general carries its risk. Bringing a comedian that has been fully transparent about what he stands for, all the more risky. It did not end well for the hospital. So they thought he was stopped midway through his set and asked to leave the stage. And the hospital put out an apology, basically groveling and saying sorry for the jokes he told that were just so offensive and harmful without sharing what those jokes were. Now, I looked into this. I've not seen any video, but there was a thread on Reddit in which someone had asked for the details about the performance, and someone shared. So again, I can't verify this. I'm just, reading some of the notes that someone else took a little bit after the fact. Apparently, he jumped into how Trudeau made everyone get vaccines. He called it a scamdemic. And then he moved to one joke that was, back in my day, we liked our women without penises. And told the joke was that his son is really bad at sports. He said you should say he's a girl, say you're a girl, and then you'll have a better chance. Then he discussed the New York Times using the term menstruating people instead of women. So he's been accused of transphobia and all this stuff. And again, a lot of this is being written by a critic. So I don't know if it was funny or if it was a political rant, like, because there are left-wing comics that go up and they just do like an unhinged rant and there's no real punchline. I don't know if he was doing like the conservative version of that or not, but apparently he just, was not popular in the room at the time. But then I'm also of the mind that, like, what were you expecting? It sounds like everything he said is everything he's been tweeting about for the last 5 years. So who's to blame here, Noah? Rob Schneider or the Regina Hospital?
Oh, it's definitely the Regina Hospital. I've been to, for some weird reason, don't ask me why, but I've been to one hospital fundraiser in my life. And my gosh, that's like the last like sort of event I would want to invite Rob Schneider to. I would invite him to like a cookout, or like, it's like something that's, you're supposed to have some energy and liveliness to, not a fundraiser like that. I think, if you just scroll through his Twitter like I did, for a few minutes after discovering who Rob Schneider was in the group chat for True North, I looked through his Twitter. I'm like, yeah, this guy clearly is a right winger. He likes Danielle Smith. He doesn't like vaccines. Great. I know who this person is. It's a great encapsulation of like who he is if you just go through his Twitter. So it's really, a shame that, they couldn't sit back, relax, and enjoy some good jokes that they might disagree with, but it's comedy. I think, Dave Chappelle, he makes jokes that I disagree about, or other comedians. I can take jokes and enjoy jokes about people that I generally like, and I move on with my day because I'm not like a political demagogue. I have a soul. I can laugh at things. So I think either the people at that fundraiser should grow a funny bone, or they should not invite Rob Schneider. Pick one.
I think the difference between like the left and the right is that the right can laugh at themselves and the left absolutely cannot. Very difficult to do when your whole personality is based off of being a victim. Sounds like his set was hilarious. I would like to get my hands on a video copy of that so that I could wow my family at our next get together. It'd be the life of the party, doubtless. But maybe we could have him at our next, True North event. Do a nice stand up piece for everyone. He could even just, we'll say, listen, we'll give you half your rate. You don't have to write any new material. You can just deliver what you gave at that fundraiser, and you don't have to write
Deliver the
anything
set
new.
that you didn't get to finish. Do the
Yeah,
do the
deliver the
stuff they
set you
pulled
didn't
you
get to
off
finish.
stage before you got to.
I'd also like to set the record straight. I looked him up, and once I saw his face, I was like, of course I know who Rob Schneider is. This is going to be controversial, but I actually do like some Adam Sandler movies. I feel like I remember sneaking into the theaters when I was a little underage to see Grown Ups, and it's a hilarious film.
Oh, you were underage when Grown Ups came out. Oh.
I think it was like, I think it
Yeah,
was
I
like,
was in like middle school.
Yeah, you were in daycare. You actually weren't a grown up when Grown Ups came out. That's how old I am. Okay.
yeah. So he's a gem. I might actually reach out. Maybe he wants to come on the Alberta Roundup and
Yeah.
deliver his set there. Who knows?
I think I tried after he retweeted me, just hoping for the best. But my fear is that so I don't have a way to contact him directly. He doesn't follow me on Twitter, so I couldn't DM him. So I reached out to his manager. But the problem with a lot of these celebrities is that they're conservative, but their managers like hate politics and and wish they would stop talking about politics. So when the manager gets like someone from the right reaching out to them, they're like desperately trying to like keep the person away. Because Pat Sajak
Delete
was
the
like
email.
that. Because Pat Sajak, the Wheel of Fortune host, at one point had said he wanted to come on my show. And then when I was talking to the publicist, it was, oh, no. He's not talking about politics anymore. And then he is talking about politics everywhere else.
Well, and I think to add to things is like the manager's looking at this and they're like, oh, he's not going to make any money off of this. It's just a free appearance. It means I'm not going to make any money off of it. So
Yeah.
nah, we're
Yeah,
not gonna do
10%
that.
of zero is well, my math's a little fussy. I think it's zero. So the thing I will point out about Adam Sandler. So Adam Sandler, I actually have Adam Sandler's email address, and I've never used it. It's the kind of thing. It's like you get to use it once, so maybe I should just try to get Adam Sandler on the show. I don't want to use it to like, hey, can you forward this to Rob Schneider, please? I feel like that's a waste of the Adam Sandler email.
Yeah, don't do that.
Use it next year during the election. Have him on the True North election night show. Bring Adam Sandler on,
doing our election
it'll be an
panel.
extravaganza. Yeah. It'll
That'd be
be
great.
great.
Just have him cracking jokes whenever we're like waiting hours and hours for results to come out throughout the night.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Adam, you're up. What do you
Exactly.
got for us?
I don't know if you guys saw this. So Adam Sandler, I think it was last year, might have been 2 years ago. He was filming a movie in Toronto, and like everyone was just running into him. He was just like walking around Toronto like all day, every day. So like every day you'd go on like BlogTO and there'd be like someone else that has grabbed some like random selfie with Adam Sandler in Yorkville. And I was like, apparently if you just like camp out in Yorkville long enough, you'll meet Adam Sandler. It actually sounded like a good plan, but not one that I wanted to brave Toronto traffic to make happen. So.
Maybe it was around the same time or maybe it was a different time, but he was in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I remember he was out for dinner, and then there was a line of people that wanted to take photos with him, and he came and he took photos with everyone. Then he said, all right, guys, that's like enough now. I'd like to eat my dinner in peace, and sounded like he handled the whole thing very respectfully. So I always have a little more admiration for celebrities when, they treat other people like real people and, are able to set those boundaries. So I don't know. Seems like a cool guy.
We always try to look out for the real people, us celebrities. No.
Well, I wouldn't know, Andrew. You're the only one who gets that title.
Yeah, no,
here.
someone was weird. Someone came up to me the other day and you're like, you're my favorite celebrity. I'm like, wow. Either it's a small group or man, you are delusional, but I'll take it.
You're a Canadian conservative celebrity. How about that?
All the way down.
Yeah, we've really, really lowered the bar. It's like there's the B list, the C list, the D list. I'm like the Z list, or the Z list, I guess, in Canada. But anyway, good old. That's why I need CanCon. Without CanCon, who would ever pay attention to the likes of me? All right, we were talking. Oh, CBC. Speaking of CanCon, all right, Noah, I won't make you do the one, but you have to do the other one on CBC.
Okay, great.
Noah's actually
we're
not
talking about the same
legally-
one, right?
Hold on. Noah's actually not legally old enough to talk about the other one. It's just too,
Yeah, so we have two CBC stories, but Noah was like blushing before when I was trying to get him to do the lead into the one. So we've decided to spare him.
It's because the last episode, you guys made me do that weird story about the whole sex thing, the sex club in Alberta. So I'm like, you guys are gonna
yes, it's all the rage these days.
Slough this thing off to me, Is this gonna be a pattern? But yeah. Anyway, so the CBC, they are the government's greatest, actually no, the government's least greatest creation ever, because they're just a rag for the Liberal government. Basically, on D-Day, to celebrate the 80th anniversary of it, CBC, their kids department, they wanted to ask the kids whether or not they feel as if it is important to commemorate D-Day. So they're basically just deferring responsibility to the kids to basically determine whether or not it's important to commemorate certain events like D-Day and to commemorate the veterans that fought and died in Europe for our freedoms and liberties. And they're basically asking these kids if we should be glorifying war. That's what commemorating the veterans and soldiers who fought at D-Day is doing. I think a lot of Canadians find this to be completely outrageous. This is already a time of these past 9 years where instead of commemorating and celebrating our history, we're tearing it down and instead calling our country genocidal and racist. And now we can't even celebrate the people who have helped to make this country possible for over 150 years. I mean, the people who fought at D-Day are some of the people who, if not for them, if say the Nazis had won World War II, or in the Cold War, the Soviets have overcome the West, we wouldn't enjoy the rights and liberties and freedoms that we all enjoy today. So I think it's quite offensive. I take it personally that that CBC kids would try and promote this to the younger generation, and it's just goes to show that the CBC is utter propaganda. They promote a very far left narrative. They pretend like it's not happening when you reach out to them for comment, and they continue to do this. It seems as if a lot of Canadians are right in asking for the CBC to be defunded. What do you guys think about this story?
I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a really perverse headline from the CBC. The opposite of what they're writing is actually true. The veterans who died, they died to protect democracy. They died to protect freedom. And recognizing days like D-Day and Veterans Day, Memorials Day, depending on where you are, this is an acknowledgement of the fact that people died to for our freedoms, and just the sadness and the heaviness of those stories. There's a reason why we might go to a cenotaph and listen to a veteran speak, and why we might read a story about people who died and some who lived and saw their friends and brothers die around them, because it's important to acknowledge the price that they paid for our freedoms, and just the sadness and the heaviness that they have to carry throughout with the rest of their lives, and all the lives that were lost in these wars. So the opposite of it is actually true. It's actually a day to recognize sacrifices that people made and to be respectful of those sacrifices. It is absolutely not celebrating war. And I think, one of the things that we see less and less of today is we do see a lot less of that combat with the development of things like bombs and whatnot, and drones to an extent. And when we do see a high death toll nowadays, it is less common because of the way that wars change. But back when we look at World War I, World War II, that was really a unique time. And even the Civil War, I was just down in Gettysburg. I was looking about the American Civil War, all the tens of thousands of people that died in Gettysburg. And it's just, we don't have combat like that very often anymore. And it's just, the death toll in those cases was so high, and the wars were so bloody and so gruesome and so hard for their soldiers to live through. And that was at a time when we didn't recognize soldiers coming back, the trauma that they carried. And we have a better understanding of that now, and we're able to pay respects to those soldiers for what they didn't understand, how that has affected them through their whole lives. In many cases, these soldiers have had to carry that with them and have really struggled just day to day because of the trauma that they've suffered. So I think the opposite of, it's not a celebration of war. It's understanding how difficult that was and how much some people sacrificed for us, and wanting to honor them for that.
So I just actually checked during this right now, and realized they've updated it. So the True North gets action. They originally had the following question: is it important to commemorate battles like D-Day? Why or why not? And then they say it can be argued that commemorating military battles is celebrating and glorifying war, but it can also be seen as a moment of reflection on the importance of peace. So what do you think? Is it important to remember and honor our military past, or is it celebrating violence? So they've now erased all of that. And the article has a little editor's note appended. We published this article to hear from kids about how they feel about D-Day, how we set up the original question, made it sound like D-Day isn't important. We have revised the question and article to be clearer about what we meant. And now the new question is, do you commemorate D-Day, and what does it mean to you? So they've taken out this whole celebration of violence nonsense, which you occasionally get from these like far, far left radical anti-war types around Remembrance Day, but anyone with half a brain and more will find them to be ridiculous because they realize that war has happened. No one likes war. The issue is, do we believe that war should be won by people like the Nazis, or do we believe that they should be stopped? And the only way you can stop them is through war. And D-Day was, as you guys have said and are well aware, the turning point of this that delivered ultimately the Allied victory not long later. So I don't even know if a lot of this is coming from someone at CBC just being a radical anti-war activist. I think it's people that just don't know history. And I think that's the real tragedy in all of this.
But even the way that they reframed that, it said it can be argued. Okay, so who's arguing that? Who's arguing that? What was the name they gave that? It sounds like CBC, you're the ones who are arguing that.
Yeah,
And
it's like the
journalists do
some
this-
people say question.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Journalists do this all the time,
Yeah.
not to seem like, a shill for your book, but you talk about this in your book extensively, that when reporters ask specifically Pierre Poilievre questions and say, some people say that, you're introducing Donald Trump style politics into Canada, and he'll say, well, who's saying that? And they often can't actually back up their claims because it's actually, they're the ones who are saying that. So it's really CBC, maybe it's for the best that they change this headline. I'm beyond giving CBC any credit for anything anymore. It's just, I'm beyond tired of the stuff that they publish and the fact that my taxpayer dollars are funding it.
Yeah, and people know that this is not like the glorification of war. I mean, when countries engage in unjust conflicts, people they express their backlash to it. When the United States, they engage in the Iraq War, I mean, a lot of people are initially supportive of it, but a lot of people condemned that war because it was an unjust war, and we still have to support the soldiers that bravely fought in that war. They didn't ask to be shipped out to a Middle Eastern country to give their life. So we have to celebrate the people that fought in these wars, but we can also condemn the just nature of a war that is fought. But World War II, it is cut and dry. It is black and white. The Nazis, they wanted to expand their territory. They wanted living space, and they wanted to genocide people who they viewed as inferior, and the only way to stop them was through war. So not only should we be commemorating the soldiers that fought in the war, but we should be also commemorating that Canada stood up against the Nazis. We stood up before the United States did, as some sort of Canadian nationalists would brag. But we stood up against the Nazis. We fought valiantly and bravely, and we defeated them.
All right. And from one CBC story to another, there was a headline on CBC: Canada's horniest newsletter is changing the way we think about sex, desire, and queer culture. Now, I assure you it's not my Substack. That is not Canada's horniest newsletter, and I certainly hope it's not changing the way you think about desire. But CBC wants you to know about this. Look at the graphic they used to promote the article here, by the way. They're wishing us all a very lovely greeting. We are all able to, there you go. CBC wishes you have a horny day. That is for $1.4 billion well spent. Now they're spotlighting a gentleman from Toronto named Christopher Sherman, who I believe that put that thing up there. I believe that's him doing like the Rose from Titanic sprawl out on the couch there. But they just to read the article. Maybe I shouldn't read the article. Do I make you read the article, Noah? No, I can't do that. That's an HR violation.
I don't think we can have this discussion with Noah
Sherman
here.
knows a few things with certainty. They include, but are not limited to, the following: the male G-spot is in the butt, kindness is horny, and censorship breeds small minds. But one aphorism he lives by is this: always have a horny day. Oh, there's more.
Oh my goodness.
Bare bottoms, exposed crotches, and words of sexual diversity can be found in the issues of Sherman's horny newsletter. Shot on a digital camera, Sherman challenges societal taboos about sex and, well, horniness. Poetry, short essays, and tales of desires are shared by artists, musicians, and other creatives alongside intimate photography. This was birthed, CBC tells us, out of the isolation of the 2020 pandemic. I am not one of these. I probably am actually a bit of a prude, but I'm a free speech lover. If you want to write about this, go for it. It's a weird thing for CBC to profile, and it's a one that I find to be it makes me wonder if I'm getting my money's worth on that $1.4 billion.
I think saying it's a weird thing to cover is being a little bit generous there, Andrew.
Well, I don't want to be accused of what they call kink shaming,
that.
because I don't have an issue with what people do. I just have an issue with paying to be told about it.
Well, I'll take that label. I think this is disgusting. I don't think anyone should be writing about it. I certainly don't want to hear about it. I certainly don't want my taxpayer dollars funding any type of coverage about it. We are trying to live in a society, people. Can we not have some standards? My goodness. Disgusting. Noah, what's your take?
My thinking is like, what bureaucrat, thought of this idea? They just woke up one day. It's like, I have a brilliant idea. I got to present to my bosses. We got to create a newsletter about this. Like,
Well, now in fairness,
I don't feel
CBC
like
is not doing the horniness newsletter. They're promoting the horniness newsletter.
Okay, but why does the CBC feel like this is a value to taxpayers?
Yeah.
I mean, they could be they could have been airing the NFL's playoff games instead of spending money on this
The person who
promotions,
was
or
supposed
just
to write
do
about
something of
D-Day
value to
was like
Canadians.
wasting their time reading the newsletter and didn't read up on the history of D-Day. I think that's what happened.
Andrew, when you're going into those details, I thought this was like some university level biology class that I just stumbled in on.
What are you taking at
the wrong
university?
time. Listen, it's not the classes I'd be taking.
It doesn't matter what you're taking
was
in
not
university.
something I learned in my political science program. This one is a little bit different than the normal subjects we cover. I mean, this could actually be in like a BC public school curriculum, though, based on what I've heard from some parents there. Now, the one point I will raise on this, which I find kind of interesting, because people, whenever you do a story like this, people are always like, oh, well, who cares what other people do? Read CBC's first person section. It's like the best source of comedy because they find the most bizarre human experiences that they choose to highlight there. I've read some of them in the past. Like, it'll be like, oh, I came out as non-binary to my iguana and now he won't talk to me. Like, it's just always something really, really bizarre like that. So this one's comparatively normal.
Should I offer to do a first person about a day in the life as a stay-at-home mom who works like a couple hours a week? 7:30 a.m., change a diaper, do a feeding, play on the floor with my child, add some normalcy back in.
That would be more wholesome, yeah. I mean, I would just do it about like my life. Instead of have a horny day, it would be like, have a corny day. Have a corny day. We could do that. We could just, tell silly jokes and it'll be so wholesome. And one aspect of this that I would caution you guys on, your pitches on our Monday editorial meetings have to be a lot better than the pitches that CBC's editors are getting.
Well, like I said, I don't actually think that Noah is legally old enough to even have this conversation. I don't think we should have read that story in front of him. I hope we don't get charged. Andrew,
child abuse.
I'm staying out of this. If we get the charge for this, it's falling on you. You're the managing editor. I know you don't always know your words, but this definitely fell on you.
HR complaints can be filed to William Macbeth.
Who will promptly
half of the YouTube comments are going to say Andrew is a groomer. It's not going to be great for your reputation.
I think that word gets us demonetized.
Should
anyway.
We get that hashtag trending on?
I should.
Maybe we'll be lucky
Andrew.
and no one
Let's
will,
get
no one will
Andrew
see the show in the first
trending
place.
On next.
All right. We can't end on that. So let's just very briefly, as we wind down here, talk about foreign policy here. Specifically, the poop balloon. North Korea has been sending its waste over the DMZ towards South Korea. They've been loading it up with human waste and excrement. This is a response to USB drives with anti-North Korean messages that North Korea has been sending, or South Korea has been sending north. North Korea has, and K-pop too, because you got to have some K-pop in there. North Korea has said, take your K-pop and shove it, and they've sent back this human fecal matter instead. So if there's ever a balloon flying overhead, do not, for the love of all that is holy, shoot it while it's over you. All right, that does it for us for today. Rachel, Emmanuel, Noah Jarvis, good to have you on the show here. This is Off the Record, and everything you've heard is off the record. This show can never see the light of day.
I feel like it would be so great if all wars were fought with just poop balloons. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, naturally the United States would win. They could just send all over Joe Biden's depends to their enemies.
If I was
did
at
you rehearse that
Canada,
line, or did you just come up with that?
I was just thinking about it as we were talking about it. I was like, well, the States has this in their hands. So,
well, because that was the big joke this week, is that he was pooping on stage himself at D-Day, which I don't think he was, but it was it's the meme that Ben Shapiro, I think it said, if Donald Trump doesn't start calling him Poopy Joe, it's a missed opportunity.
Sleepy Joe, Poopy Joe. What else do we have?
I think election campaigns should be able to send poop balloons over to rival campaign offices. You know,
Oh.
just as like sort of campaign
No,
warfare.
no. This isn't a third
You know,
world country,
spice it
Noah.
up a
We
little
don't want
bit.
that here. We don't want that here. No.
Well, if it's spicing it up you want, do I have a newsletter for you?